UFC fighter, are you allowed to say, in your opinion, it's tough for you to say because you do this, but who do you think is the greatest of the fighters?
There's a lot of arguments for who's the greatest of all time. You know, John Jones, most people would say is the greatest of all time, never lost. There's certainly a really good argument for that. There's another argument for George St. Pierre. I always leave in B.J. Penn in his prime, Anderson Silva in his prime. You know, Mighty Mouse. People forget about Mighty Mouse because, unfortunately, he's a smaller guy. He's 125 pounds, flyweight champion. He's one of the greatest expressions of mixed martial arts I've ever seen. I think to this day.
And Khabib? What about
Khabib's fantastic. But if you looked at like accomplishments in terms of championship fights, Khabib retired 29-0, but he didn't have as many world championship
never lost
fights.
a round. They say
he might have lost to Gleison Tebow. He might have lost to him.
A round?
He might have lost a round. And that was a controversial fight where people think that Gleison Tebow could have even got the decision in that fight. I'd have to go back and watch it again to make a decision. But
they're great athletes. Huh?
Oh, the best athletes in the world. And the most dangerous sport in terms of, like, I always call it high-level problem solving with dire physical consequences.
Yeah, it's just brutal.
That's what fighting is.
You know, I never forget. So there was a fighter named James Toney.
Oh, yeah, I love James Toney.
He fought as a very light fighter, and he ended up as a heavyweight. I mean, this guy went through everything. He was almost like a lightweight.
He went from middleweight all the way up to heavyweight. Yeah, and beat Evander Holyfield as a heavyweight.
And he was a real fighter.
Oh, yeah.
So James Toney, and I think it was, say, George
St. Pierre?
St. Pierre. I think it was him. Who did he fight? James Toney?
No, James Toney didn't fight George St. Pierre.
He fought a UFC fighter.
Yeah, Randy Couture fought James Toney.
Was it?
But
Randy
that was like
Couture,
an easy
maybe?
fight. That was a very easy fight. Randy Couture just took him down and
it
strangled
was the
him.
most, and he's half the size, and he just. Once he got to the ankles, back the announcer said, "It's over."
Yeah,
and he put him to
picked him,
sleep.
took him down, mounted him, strangled him. It was
and
pretty
James,
quick.
he was, but he was talking big because he was much bigger. He was a pretty big guy.
James just wanted to make some money. In that
You think
fight.
so?
Yeah.
But I never forgot it.
It
was over very quickly, and he was lying, sleeping on the mat, and he was talking. You know, he was doing the Muhammad Ali stuff, but it didn't work out. But I remember
he sold the fight.
Yeah, that was Couture probably.
Yeah,
wasn't
it was Couture. George never fought a boxer in an MMA fight. If he did, he would kill them.
Was he one of the greatest?
Yes, unquestionably. That's the argument. There's like a handful of guys you can make the argument is the greatest of all time. People forget about Anderson Silva. In his prime, he was unstoppable. But that's the thing is, and then there's Fedor Emelianenko, who fought in Pride. In his prime, he was unstoppable. There's this,
and you have a couple now that are pretty good.
Oh, we've got so many now. Alex Pereira.
Correct.
There's an argument that he's the top pound-for-pound fighter in the world right now.
He's looking very good. Yeah,
it's unbelievable. But it's like fighters can only compete at that level for so many years, and so in my opinion, you have to judge them at their very peak. You can't judge them when they're hanging on and still fighting. You can't judge them when they're coming up. You got to judge them in that championship peak. And that championship peak, there's a handful of guys that you would consider at the very top.
If they stopped a little bit sooner, some of them would have had, you know, I mean, there are a couple of that you just mentioned without mentioning names. If they stopped, they had the perfect, they were unbelievable. And then at a certain age, they start getting knocked out, right?
Yes, it's unfortunate, but the thing is that same belief in themselves that lets them become a champion makes them think that they can do it long past the time that they actually can.
Well, Anderson Silva was essentially unbeatable. And then he lost a close one. Then all of a sudden
he got knocked out. He got knocked out by Chris Weidman.
Right.
He was kind of clowning in that fight famously, and Chris Weidman had a vicious left hook, knocked him out. And then they fought a second time, and he broke his leg on Chris Weidman.
Right, that's right.
And after that fight, he was kind of never the same because that leg break injury, which Conor McGregor had, there's quite a few fighters. Weidman actually wound up having the same injury, ironically. There's only been like
you're never the same because you can't
Never
kick.
the same.